Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Kevin, and I'm from Shakespeare Game. In today's presentation, I will analyze a key speech in Shakespeare's famous play, Othello. My primary focus will be the representation of the main character in Othello in this speech, but I will also discuss some of the lyrical and technical choices made by Shakespeare to create an intense and theatrical experience. When Shakespeare originally wrote this play in 1608, following the great tragedy that is coming in this era, one significant difference is the protagonist of the tragedy is a Moor, a black person. Shakespeare draws the stereotypical views of Moor established in Elizabethan era to construct a story revolves around binary opposition and chain of being, how it is disturbed and at the end return to normality. Like how other tragedies in this era, the character Othello possesses a fatal flaw, his jealousy. This led to his eventual downfall. Outside of the genre, Shakespeare has framed a much more intricate character, one who stands by his moral, one who deeply troubled by racial stereotype. Shakespeare's play Othello conforms to Elizabethan beliefs. On another hand, Shakespeare also challenges the attitude and beliefs of his viewer. The speech I will be discussing today comes from Act 5, Scene 2, line 1 to 22. This is a key soliloquy by Othello, the character, as he was about to make the final decision to kill Desdemona. Though he has regained some sense of reasoning since the first heard of Desdemona's alleged adultery, he is still mad at her. Hesitant about his plan, he was trying to reason to himself that killing his wife is not only justified, but is also beneficial to the society. This soliloquy reinforces Othello is a stubborn, passion-driven beast who is about to commit the worst crime out of jealousy. In this opening few lines of the soliloquy, Shakespeare clearly established that Othello was hesitant about what he would do. He was physically torn and mentally exhausted by the decision of killing her wife. In Elizabethan era, it is not uncommon to see a husband killing or punishing her wife for sins such as adultery. However, killing a person in this period of history is still considered to be very immoral. Audiences are positioned to sympathize with Othello as he has difficulty facing his moral dilemma. Shakespeare first established how Othello feels about Desdemona, using an anaphora. It is a cause. Each descending line reveals how Othello recognizes the beauty of Desdemona. The thought of hurting Desdemona scares him. Her white skin rains snow. Then he compares Desdemona to some timeless artifact, a monumental alabaster. Both comparisons act to add to the strong emotion Othello had on Desdemona. The audience are positioned to see the real struggle Othello was facing, killing a wife he was deeply in love with. In the second part of the speech, Othello convinced himself to kill Desdemona, meanwhile realizing the heavy consequences of such action. By comparing the candlelight with Desdemona's soul, where for candlelight, when put it out, Othello can again thy former light restore, could easily repent for it. Whereas for the light inside Desdemona, her soul, thou cunningest pattern of excellent nature, he cannot give it vital growth again. Othello paradoxically remarks on her cunning pattern. Her supposed trickster spirit was a part of the soul he missed the most, which goes against Othello's moral, highlighting Othello was still blinded by his love, even moment before killing her. Then Othello used metaphor again. When I pluck thy rose, the words pluck is contrasted with the violent way which Othello kills Desdemona. This section of the speech once again reinforces that Othello was an irrational person, but at the same time, Shakespeare positions his audience to admire Othello. He could execute what he thinks is correct, with little hesitation. The justice action was superimposed on the grotesque crime, was once again elevated in the third and final section of the speech. The last part of the soliloquy saw Othello come to an agreement with himself about killing Desdemona. In this section of the play, Othello's real struggle is transferred to the audience. Othello used biblical reference to encourage himself, justifying his action. He states, justice, break her sword. To act of killing Desdemona is as represented as almost angelic. This is common in Elizabethan era and other plays in Shakespeare wrote. That word, God, will lend power who deliver justice, action. In this case, Othello becomes the self-proclaimed apostle of God, who must bring the killing his wife. It is in this case, besides, when thou art dead, and I will kill thee, and love thee after. Othello explains that the current Desdemona is tainted, and under his heavenly judgment, she can return to his former glory. In this last section of the soliloquy, Shakespeare positions his reader to feel sympathetic towards Othello, as anger and jealousy consumes him. Audience watching horror as the most gruesome crime in the whole play unveils. Shakespeare often gave very little stage directions in his play. Therefore, different actors or stage directors will have different interpretation of the play. Often, a small gesture or even the change in volume will change the meaning of the play completely. Now, I will attempt to enact a part of the soliloquy. Throughout the soliloquy, I will try to show the emotional conflict between revenant and determination Othello undergoes. Yes, he must die, else she will betray more men. Put out the light, and then put out the light. If I quench thee, thou flaming minister, I can again thy former light restore. I could repent me, but once put out thy light. Thou cunningest pattern of excelling nature, I know we're not that Pothemian heat that can thy light resume. When I have plucked thy rose, I cannot give it vital growth again. I must wither and smell on the tree. You hopefully have noticed that I have 3 emotional stages I attempt to create in this paragraph. I began speaking emotionally and full of vigor. The volume which I spoke is progressively louder in the following line. After a short pause between should I repent me and but once put out thy light, I suddenly speak much softer. At the end of I must need wither, I will smell thee on the tree. I was whimpering and gasping for air. The goal of this action is to highlight Othello is an emotional person. That killing Desdemona is a huge undertaking for her. I want the audience to sympathize with Othello. The delivering of the line in a Shakespeare's play is especially important. In this speech, for example, highlighting some personality flaws in Othello which lead to his downfall. Shakespeare portrayed Othello as an irrational, blunt, but righteous noble hero. Our view in the modern age may be vastly different to the reading of the play's origin. Throughout the year, there have been many various portrayals of Othello, at times depicted as a frightening or misogynistic. Adaptation may also vary Othello's race. For instance, in an 1850 adaptation of Othello, the actor was a Persian man, representing Othello as a national hero. In stark contrast, a more recent movie adaptation from 1995 casted African-American actor as Othello. Some commentator explained the choice of character is a commentating on the racial problems in society. A modern adaptation of Othello set the same story in modern society. It worked as well as the original story. Perhaps this is the beauty of Shakespeare's work. Its polysemic nature allows various interpretation, which allows people in different ages and backgrounds, which can be used to inspire, comment, and overall entertain the audience. Thank you.